Dr. Birx's book. It's 500 pages. And notably about her book, she doesn't have any citations in her book. Usually books that are based on science are the last third of the book, at least the last 100 pages, are just rife with hundreds and hundreds of news citations and scientific studies, so that when you, the reader, read the book and you say, oh, wow, that's a fact, that's a claim that this doctor is making or this author is making, you can go and reference that. You can read it for yourself. Dr. Birx does no such thing. This is 500 pages without citations, which is really strange. But it does play into this technocracy that the left has tried to push on us, where you, the sorry person, aren't qualified to understand a study. You should just listen and obey without questioning to the public health experts like Dr. Birx, who, as a reminder, was never elected by the American people. She was appointed. She is a swamp creature. She is a bureaucrat. She is a facet of the administrative state. And I think there's no better example, actually, of the administrative state than Dr. Deborah Birx, and you will see why. In the early days of the COVID pandemic, she said that, or she admits in her book that she actually wanted the US to be locked down the way that Italy was locked down. This is what she writes in her book. She said, we had to make her advice or her recommendations, palatable to the administration by avoiding the obvious appearance of a full Italian lockdown. At the same time, we needed the measures to be effective at slowing the spread, which meant matching as closely as possible what Italy had done, a tall order. We were playing a game of chess in which the success of each move was predicated on the one before it. At this point, I wasn't about to use the words lockdown or shutdown. If I had uttered either of those words in early March, after being at the White House only 1 week, the political, non-medical members of the task force would have dismissed me as too alarmist, too doom and gloom, too reliant on feelings and not facts. They would have campaigned to lock me down and shut me up. I left the rest, she said, unstated. She's talking now about 15 days to slow the spread. So I should have prefaced that. Okay, so 15 days to slow the spread. She said, I left the rest unstated, that this 15 days was just a starting point. No sooner had we convinced the Trump administration to implement our version of a 2-week shutdown than I was trying to figure out how to extend it. Dear Lord, it's at the point now where 2 years later, I'm just kind of like, well, that's what I said at the time. That's what a lot of us were saying at the time. That's what a lot of the American people felt at the time, that this was a fraud from the beginning, that it wasn't intended to be 2 weeks. It was just a way of making it chewable to the American people so the American people wouldn't freak out. She says, 15 days to slow the spread was a start, but I knew it would be just that. I didn't have the numbers in front of me yet to make the case for extending it longer, but I had 2 weeks to get them. That's not science, by the way. That's the opposite of science. So in science, you check your preconceived notions or your conclusions or the results that you would like, or anything that would advantage your political agenda. You check that at the door, and you look at data in a very neutral way. You look for the pattern that emerges on its own, and you draw your conclusion based on that pattern. You don't cherry pick data to fit the result that you want, so that that's dishonest. That's ideology. That's not science. Yet this is exactly what Dr. Birx is admitting to. I didn't have the numbers in front of me yet to make the case for extending it longer, but I had 2 weeks to get them. So she wasn't analyzing the numbers that she had. She was looking for numbers that would justify her political agenda, which she wanted to do, which was a full Italian lockdown. She said, however hard it had been to get the 15-day shutdown approved, getting another one would be more difficult by many orders of magnitude. And she had no data to justify this. It was just something that she wanted. And so she tried to convince the president and the Trump administration to do this.